if you don't know where you're going, you're never going to be able to make the decision on how you're going to get there. So that's just setting that whole thing up. How does a hard decision become so easy? And that's what we want to spend some time with today.
This is the Untamed Podcast, where only the few dare to go. We're building a community of adventurous high achievers who refuse to trade our dreams for comfortable mediocrity so that we can unleash our untamed potential. Could you be one of the untamed few? Now, your untamed hosts, Marc Lucas and Joel Fritz.
Decision making is one of the most important topics of conversation I think that we can possibly have. Whether you're a leader, if we're talking about your leadership in business, whether we're talking about being a husband, a father, really career decisions, you make thousands of decisions every single day. So the question is how do we make hard decisions really easy? And I was pondering this as we were getting ready for the podcast. And I realized that one of the hardest decisions I perceived would be one of the hardest decisions of my life would be the person that I chose to marry. And Marc, it turned out to be literally one of the easiest decisions in my entire life. So can you indulge me? I'm going to tell a little story to start this off.
Yeah, do it. I love it.
My wife, Kristen, I remember I was a young man, I was in my mid-20s and I had gone off to college. And boy, there's a lot of options at college. You see, you're like, wow, I'm excited. The whole dating world, it's been a long time since I've been in it, but I know some of the people listening are in it right now. But that whole thought process of picking one person to spend your entire life with, one person, is like, how do you do that, right? I mean, just how do you do that? And I remember feeling
daunting.
that. It is super daunting. Yeah. And so the fact that I met Kristen in January of 2003, and we were married December 27th of 2003 is extraordinary to me. What's more extraordinary is that you and I talk about how I'm a little bit of the analysis paralysis personality.
Yes, you are.
I'm like, I want to understand why we're doing something, and I want to understand where it's going before we make the decision to do it.
I'm like, Joe, we're just talking about lunch.
Exactly. No. I'm like, Marc, I need to understand exactly why.
Why?
We're going to eat chicken wings. I don't understand it.
Because they're delicious.
So this whole idea of when I met Kristen, I was shocked because as our relationship advanced, it just took one step after another and it got faster and faster. And the next thing you know, I'm like, yes, I know. Yes, I'm confident. Yes, yes, yes. And so I asked her to marry me and she felt the exact same way. So the questions still remain, why? Why did it happen like that for me in that circumstance? Is that a format for everybody, a template? I don't know about that. It really is a difficult thing when you start talking about relationships, the emotions that are involved. But in that case, I think I can point out a few simple things, starting with, if you don't know where you're going, you're never going to be able to make the decision on how you're going to get there. So that's just setting that whole thing up. How does a hard decision become so easy? And that's what we want to spend some time with today.
I love it. Great setup. I love hearing really kind of you walk through the greatest decision you ever made.
I was shocked.
Greatest
so
decision.
Yeah.
Bar
Still
down.
is.
Still is the best
Yep.
decision that we both made was to say yes to our brides and our wives.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, I think there's so many layers that we're going to get into, but I think every single one of us, we make decisions all day long. And you said this in the open. So we get up in the morning, we decide what we're going to wear. We get up in the morning, we decide what we're going to eat. We get up in the morning and we decide the path that we're going to take to work. We get up in the morning, we decide podcast or music or what type of music. I mean, we're making all of these small decisions every single day. But there is this analysis paralysis that happens when it comes to the bigger decisions. When it comes to decisions that impact our employees, impact our family, impact the community. Yeah. And really this conversation is so needed because at the end of the day, and I saw this early on when I was in college ministry, I used to just pull my hair out because almost every single time that I would finish up having that type of gathering, it was a Thursday night, and I'd walk to the car, and by the time everybody had kind of tore down the stage, all the equipment, band equipment, lighting, all the chairs had been stacked. Everything had been cleaned. This is like a 1 hour process, Joel, of cleaning up everything.
Yeah, I remember.
You remember. There were still gobs of people in circles trying to figure out an hour later, where should we eat? I don't know. I don't know. Should it be chicken wings, or we thinking tacos? We thinking burgers? I'm like, this is asinine. Just make a decision, people, where you're going to go eat. And it's just interesting to me that so often though, and I mean, there's even obviously elements for myself too, where we just get analysis paralysis, where we just can't make decisions and move forward. And again, you're right. That first step, we've got to be clear in where are we aiming and where's the destination. Yeah. And we've talked a lot about the A's, but a part of that A and the steps that we give is that aim, and having that importance of saying, okay, here's the desired future. Here's the aim that I have of the desired future. I've spent some time really articulating where I want to go. I've probably brought wiser people into that conversation with me to collectively make that decision. But now we have some clarity on it. So
yeah, no doubt. Yeah, so we're going to give a little bit of a framework in this podcast for people to make good decisions based on. And that first part is you got to know where you're going if you're going to decide how to get there. But it has a lot to do with the decisions that we make every day. I mean, if you think about it, you talked about getting out of bed and the first decisions that we make. I mean, some of you out there may be making the decision, am I going to brush my teeth or not brush my teeth? And so that should be a much easier decision than that. Thank you. So you just listen to Marc.
I'm speaking to my 12-year-old son. Brush your teeth.
So the answer is brush your teeth, but the bigger question is why? What's the destination, right? Is it the relationships? You know, why do we do that? I have stories I could tell about actually going with dentists down to third world countries to help people in need who don't have access to dentists. And when you look inside of their mouths, another story is told. I mean, it's distinct, right? Decay. We don't deal with that in large part because we've been trained into a healthy dental hygiene. But we should be understanding why do we do the things that we do, because we need to know where we want to be in order to make the decisions on how to get there, including little things like brushing your teeth. So that's really the first part of the framework is you got to know where you're going. But the second part is then you have to align with certain things. And so that alignment, we're going to spend some time talking about alignment, but then finally after that alignment, the thing you've already been talking about is that analysis paralysis. You have to act, right? You have to make a decision and do something about it. So we'll spend some time talking about that as well. But ultimately, if you know where you're going, you're always processing alignment with, well, is my decision reflecting where I want to go? And then finally, I'm just simply making the decision to act, regardless of the consequences that are going to come. I just need to make motion. Then you're going to be making decisions a lot faster and a lot easier than you probably currently are.
Yeah. And I think back to that first step, I think we want to give people some practical right now in that first step. So I think a couple things I want to just hit on quickly. So when we dream of where we want to go, we dream of that preferred future.
We love talking about dreams.
Aiming at the desired future. And again, we do love talking about dreams because at the end of the day, if you're not really dreaming, to some degree, probably large degrees, you're dying. So we've got to foster and cultivate dreams within ourselves and within our families and within our communities, within the marketplace. So we've got to wake up every day and we've got to really ask ourselves, how do I continually press in and push myself to a preferred future to continually grow and achieve more and achieve greater things in serving sacrificially other people? We've got to have that mindset, because if not, we will truly start to deteriorate and die quickly if we stop dreaming, if we stop looking at what is the desired future. And I think a lot of people, again, we talk a lot about jumping in that hamster wheel. We're just grinding away and we're in that hamster wheel. And at the end of the day, the exhaustion and the fatigue has sunk into such a large degree that we just like, you know what? I don't have the energy or even the time to dream, Joel. Like I just don't really have, I'm just exhausted physically, and I'm exhausted mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Like you go down the list, I'm fatigued. And I've lost the ability to really wake up in the morning and begin to say, okay, what is even one small dream? What is one step forward and getting 1% better and moving towards a dream that we have as a family, a dream that I have, a dream we have as a company, a dream we have as a neighborhood, This just invigorates us. Like we're jacked up. Like we're that pump jacked up like we get when we go surfing, which we are going surfing September 11th through 14th. Shameless plug for the retreat. Link is definitely in every bio that we have and also on the YouTube page. But the reality is, and Spotify for those that are listening and watching, but we just get jacked up when we start even having little mini dreams. So
yeah, without a doubt. So let's jump back to that first part in the destination of where we're going, right? So when we look at the destination, how do we choose where we want to go? There are so many different realities when it comes to this, but I'm going to use a couple of illustrations or a couple of situations to kind of draw out some stories from us that we can talk about this. But two things. I talked about marriage. Man, you want to talk about, I mean, is there a bigger decision that you can make in your life, right?
No.
And so that's monstrous because it's going to affect everything, but also your career. People spend a lot of time thinking about career. So how do you make these decisions? Now, I think it's so interesting how we, without knowing it, kind of make these decisions, right? And you and I want to spend time with men, are often spending time with guys and talking to them about almost like excavating, why did you decide that? And then they sit back and they go, I didn't really think about why I made the decision. I just decided that's where I should be going. So career is a really easy one. And also marriage is easy. Why? Because we are hardwired to want to be with another person in our life, right? Mm-hmm. As far as a career, there are some hard wirings. There are some things that society around us says that we are supposed to have as a person. And so we automatically set out and try and achieve those things without thinking about why we're doing it. Nevertheless, we have this destination. The challenge is to step back from the situation and to analyze the destination that we're actually heading for. And so I think what happened with my wife, why that decision became so easy as I have reflected on it over the years, is just this. Is that my destination was so clear in my core values, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, but we'll also have another podcast on. And so you guys should go and check out that podcast on figuring out your core values. But my core values in my mid-20s were so clear that when Kristen came into my life, she aligned with those core values perfectly. So it wasn't just about me, looking for a wife and being overcome with the chemical reactions that were happening in my brain and being like, this girl looks good, let's get married, let's move on to the next step, and then compromising in alignment with core values, compromising in the real desires that I had because I was pastoring at the time. And I knew that if this is my heartbeat, it's got to be her heartbeat in some way. But then, even thinking about the girl that I dated before Kristen, and we would go into rooms, I was always around people as a pastor, and she would kind of cower by the door or be like, can we go now? Can we go now? Can we go now? And ultimately, me recognizing like, this just isn't going to work because I'm headed in this direction, she's headed in this direction. When I met Kristen, she could thrive in a room. People were drawn to her and all that sort of thing, which was a perfect compliment to me, who was actually even more intimidated in a room than Kristen. And I'm a person that loves to be around people. And I could see just what a compliment that was, but I was clear. I realized in hindsight, I was clear on where I wanted to go, and it made it so much easier to see the person that was going to join me in that.
Yeah. We'll have a whole podcast on this, so I won't spend any more time than you just did as well on the core values. But you're right. That is the North Star. Mm-hmm. That's our compass. When we have crystallized clarity, we say that a lot, but it's a really good combination of two words. When we have crystallized clarity, and we have a whole podcast on helping people understand their core values and how they create core values, that becomes literally the map. Mm-hmm. And that becomes that compass that we need to be able to make decisions quickly, even big decisions, which all great leaders, because of their clarity around their core values, can make great decisions, powerful decisions, decisions that impact tens, if not hundreds of thousands, because they have great clarity on their core values. So you're right. I mean, it gives you all the clarity that you need to be able to dream of the preferred future and to be able to know, okay, here's a decision that I'm dreaming about that's in alignment with my core values. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, so I'd like to talk a little bit more about that alignment too. How do we find that alignment? I think of so many stories of coaching people, talking to people about finding that alignment, because everybody at some point has the question, what am I supposed to do in my career? But then as we start to walk that out, we go one direction and then we go another. And you have said, even in our preparation for this, you kept saying you've got to go and course correct. And I think that's something so important for everybody to hear. We'll talk about that a little bit more in the analysis paralysis. But course correction is going to be part of the game. We always used to talk about in leadership and the teams that I've been a part of, we always talk about you make your plan and then you count on the fact that you're going to have to adjust your plan. I have hundreds of times, something like that. Yeah. But if you don't have a plan, if you don't know where you're going, then you can't get to the point where it needs to be adjusted because nothing's going anywhere. So that's one of the key things, is that we want things to be going in a particular direction. But when you're headed in a direction and you see that you need a course correction, then you have to make that course correction. And there's one story in my mind distinctly. This is a long time ago, but there was a guy, I was around some very talented musicians early on in my career. And these guys, I mean, extremely talented. And I was so excited to see where their course of life would lead them in their musical career. But I remember one guy was so locked into this one band he was a part of. And the lead singer, this guy should have been the lead singer, but he wasn't. He wasn't the creative force, but he should have been. And he was always having a hard time with the leader. And I said, well, why don't you leave and go start your own band? And that's where it was evident, is probably insecurity related, which all of us deal with insecurities. I'll talk about mine if you want me to talk about mine, but it's like the thing that really came to the top in this story, though, is that he had invested 1.5 years in this band, 1.5 years, 2 years in this band already. And he didn't want to lose the time that had already been invested. Yeah. So he stayed.
Yeah.
And he just invested more time in a lost cause.
Right.
Marc, he ended up leaving the band.
Yeah, eventually, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's always the same story for us. You end up leaving the band eventually.
Yeah.
But how much time are you going to spend in a place that you know you needed a course correction? How much time are you going to spend in the place you know you're not supposed to be before you course correct and make the decision to go in the right direction?
Yeah. Well, and I think at the end of the day, I think one of the things that I'll share that's been probably the hardest for me, and could be by and large the hardest for those that are with us right now, watching and listening. We talk about this first step of aiming and having the desired future and dreaming about the desired future. And then we know that we have to design a path. We know that there's a path that we have to put in place. I think where most people, myself included, get so stuck is taking that first step. We get so stuck because we just don't know. Well, I don't know. Is it the right step? I don't know. It's got to be just the right step. It's got to be a great first step. I really just want to make sure I know this is where I want to go. I know it's a decision that we collectively or me individually am making, and it's aligned with my core values, but just taking that first step, moving and taking that first step. Because again, there is going to be possibly, like you said, hundreds, and I say the word mid-course corrections. There's going to be possibly hundreds of mid-course corrections. Yes, and that's going to happen. Just take the first step.
Yeah.
The hardest step a lot of times is that first step. So we all want movement. We all want movement in our life. We all want momentum in our life. But to get a movement, to get any type of momentum, there has to be a moment. And that moment is the first step.
Yeah.
You've got to start the snowball. You've got to start the moments moving forward. There has to be movement forward for anything to catch fire and be a movement. There's got to be a moment, but that moment is taking that first step. Yeah. And even if that first step becomes the second step as a mid-course correction, that's okay. You're still moving forward and you're still on the path that really God has you to lead you to the great place of being able to get to the desired dream and the desired future that you want.
Yeah.
And it might be a crazy path like this, all different left, right, U-turn, left, right, U-turn. That's okay. Almost every great path that any of us have taken, it's not a straight path.
No.
It's a bumpy path with lefts and rights and U-turns, all those mid-course corrections. Just ask yourself, you do need to analyze, not to the point of being paralyzed by it, analysis paralysis. You do need to analyze. You do need to obviously run it through your filter of your core values. You do need to bring other people into that conversation with you to hear other hearts and minds and have some wise counsel around you. But then once that happens, take a step, move forward, move forward. It's so important that you just don't sit in a place of concrete and not make a decision to move forward, because right now the concrete might feel pretty wet, but don't let it dry. Make decisions to move forward, because if not, you're going to have regrets. If not, you're not going to be able to cultivate the dreams that really God is festering inside of you, dreams that you want to experiment and see how these dreams can come to life for you, for your corporation, for your community, for your family, for all of it. You want to move forward.
Yeah. I mean, that's so good. And I'm thinking about that in the context of career when I see these next things that I'm going to say. But if we can find alignment between these three major areas that I talk about often as the calling coach, right? Alignment between calling, vocation or calling, they're the same thing, because vocare is the Latin word for call, right? To call. So if you can figure out, that's more core to who you are, right? When I talk about my calling, that could really influence my core values, right? The way that I see life. But then you move into your profession and skills and things like that, where you're going to invest time and money into acquiring skills in a particular profession. But could you have multiple professions in your life? Yeah. I mean, I went from pastoral ministry for 20 plus full-time years into learning a whole different skill set in real estate development, right? Real estate developing, flipping houses. I mean, was I able to use a lot of what I learned in leadership and ministry? Yes. And apply it over there? Did I have skills that I brought over? Yes. But then I learned another type of profession. So then I had that to work with. But now let's talk about job. This is the thing that I think people get hung up on after everything that you said. We get hung up on this idea of, I've got to pick the right job. No, you don't. You really don't need to pick the right job. I mean, right now, I think the average is over 4 or 5 different jobs in the course of your career. Because a job is just really the expression. It's the assignment that you take in any particular time. I mean, I have guys who are working in programming, and if you're in the computer world, they actually, in order to get higher paychecks and to get better jobs, they have to jump from one company to another. And it's almost like they bounce, and that's how they go up the chain, is a lot of times how that works. So it's fascinating to me, but they're not tied to any job like other people are. So unless your core value is to be in one place for your entire life, your job is not tied to those core things. Your calling, understanding who you are and how you're made and the things that the Lord has for you, that's pretty critical that you start to understand that. And so if you haven't, I would really encourage you to do that. Picking the profession that you're going to be trained in and invest time and money, that's a little more substantive. But what job that is, that you express that in, there's substance there, but you can make a mistake in that area. And it's almost like we want to give you permission to do that just so that you get moving.
Yeah, that's great. Well, and I think I'd like to spend some time in probably the latter part of our conversation here today with the Untamed Few, really walking through some of that analysis paralysis. And I know you and I are different in a myriad of ways, but we're definitely different in the way that God has cut us and wired us, in the sense that you definitely lean more to that analysis paralysis, and I lean more to kind of more of a reactionary decision-making individual that sometimes uses emotion, sometimes uses logic, sometimes just wants to make decisions and feel like I am a risk taker. Like I kind of pride myself on being a risk taker when it comes to making decisions. And my wife and I are also very different in that. I'm much more risk taker. She's much more risk adverse.
Right.
So in the end of the day, I think we just have to balance out where the Untamed Few is that are listening and watching right now, and just really be able to evaluate, okay, I'm going to speak to my side. Okay. And you speak to your side.
Yes.
So
love it.
For me, we talked about it a few episodes back about emotions and understanding emotional EQ and IQ and how we grow in emotions. And we talked about the How We Feel app. It's episode, I don't remember where, but about 3 episodes ago, but it's all about emotions. And in that, I gave a story and a visual of emotions driving the bus. And emotions are yee, and they're just driving this bus and they're all over the place in the road, probably not staying in their lane. And they're just crazy. I mean, they are crazy in their ability to drive straight towards logic and reason and truth. And yet logic, reason, and truth are in the back of the bus and they're hanging on for dear life. The oh crap handle they're hanging on to in the back. And they're like, please get me off the bus. They're tapping on the window. And I share all of that in the goofiness of the visual to realize that there are times in my life where I have to identify, listen, Mark, right now, your emotions are so high right now that you should absolutely not be making any decisions right now. Maybe what you eat for breakfast, or if I brush my teeth decisions, but any decisions beyond those very small decisions, you should not be making any medium to large size decisions right now because your emotions are so supercharged that you've got to bring logic and reason to the front of the bus. And they've got to start really controlling the path and the destiny of that desired future. And that's a process for me of time. It's a process for me to evaluate and process my emotions. So if I'm low energy right now, and then what is the emotion? And I've got to journal. I've got to chew on that a little bit. I got to process that emotion. It's not just quickly like that. Yeah. It's going to take some time for me to do that. Then once I've processed that emotion, okay, I feel like there's been some character development internally inside of me through that process, which there's great growth that happens when you do that. Then I'm able to come to a place of logic and reason. I don't discredit the emotion, but now the emotion is probably the fourth or fifth row in the bus, not driving. And now I'm able to make some decisions with, again, a tribe around me that I trust, people around me that I can bounce the ideas off of. And now I'm able to make some decisions. So I've just had to process that. Early on in our marriage, my wife and I, she used to joke that I was the impulsive buyer. And again, that's even based on emotions. Like, I want it now. Click, 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 click. And it was just like, okay, chicken chow mein, relax a little bit. You can't just buy everything that you want online without processing budget and resources. And do we really need this? I want it. I want it. I want it. So at the end of the day, I've just had to kind of control myself and grow in those tendencies to realize, okay, I don't discredit emotions. Emotions, I think it's a great quality for me that I can wear my heart on my sleeve. But even like in that sentence, I wear my heart on my sleeve, but I also have some asterisks and disclaimers of when I do that, how I do that, who I do that in front of. So all of that, there just has to be a maturing process for me to be able to make the right decision, the right preferred future, build the right path out, have the right core values in place to get there, to be able to make good, healthy decisions that are not only best for me, but also best for the people that are around me.
Yeah. Well, hey, and you know what I love? I love that you illustrated that through adventure. And then you went into the bus and everything, but I think that shows a distinct difference between you and I. And one of the reasons that we find such a good partnership in doing this is that we both love adventure at our core. And so my way of approaching adventure, and I know this about you, you told me a story recently, Marc really does just throw himself in, okay? He went down to Cabo not too long ago, and then he calls me up and he's like, dude, I just went into double overhead waves only to find out I'm not in shape anymore, right? You know, like, so that's Marc.
Just punished.
I'm thinking about it before the trip, right? Like, so when we go surfing in a few weeks, I'm going to be like, oh, I got to be in the pool for a number of weeks so that my arms actually work when I get in the ocean because it's been a little while. I live in Alabama now. But Marc is just like, double overhead, woo! I'm like 20 years old. Let's go, buddy. You know,
very true.
And I think of my adventure, you know, like the way I would approach adventure over the years. So I'm all in, right? I think of cliff jumping, and I think of some bicycle riding on BMX bikes as kids and stuff. And so my pattern would be this, right? I'd see this hill and I'd be like, oh, that'd be amazing. Like, we should do that, right? And then I'd look over at my younger brother and be like, test dummy, you know, like I would send him. It was so bad. Like you think, hey, bro, do you think you could pull that off? Right. And
You
then
could
he'd
do
go
it.
and try it and he'd crash or burn. Like I was actually analyzing the situation by using my brother.
It's brilliant.
Is this bad? Well, it's definitely brilliant, probably in hindsight, like challenging on the relationship. Yeah. But he's a daredevil. You know what I'm saying? Like he came out more of a daredevil than me. But nevertheless, both of us loved adventure. You and I love adventure, but I approach it with some analysis. So like I think of cliff jumping too. We would go cliff jumping and there's this place called Reddington Pass in Arizona. And there are these cliffs, but there's not a lot of water in Arizona. So you didn't know the level and you really have to check it out. Well, some people would get up there and be like, yeah, sweet. They jump off. Not me. I'm like swimming down to know exactly where the rock structure is underneath. I'm going to know everything and then I'm going to go out jump everybody. It's serious. Like that's how I would approach life. But so I want the adventure, but I do the analysis. And Marc also knows that sometimes I get hung up in the analysis, right? I look again and again. Well, maybe there's more information or maybe there's too many options, all these sorts of things, which can lead to that paralysis, that slowing down. But here's what everybody needs to hear. No decision is every bit the decision that, well, I said that wrong. No, what would it be? Like no decision is still a decision. And if you make those no decisions again and again and again, those are not the kind of decisions that you want to run your life, nor are the emotional decisions. You've got to figure out how to process through these things that we're talking about right now. You got to look at it and you got to ask, where do I want to go? And if you know where you want to go, then the decisions of how you're going to get there are going to be a lot easier. And then you go, well, is this thing that is presenting itself, this opportunity, this challenge, because isn't that how decisions work typically? I mean, you don't just craft like, this is going to happen exactly like this is the path I want to walk, this is the career I want to do, and everything falls into place. What happens is you have an idea of where you want to be and you start to walk that path, and then you course correct, like you said. And then those course corrections are measured and analyzed. They are aligned with where you want to go. And core values come into that. And so you can listen to that podcast. And finally, just moving, just doing something becomes critical if that's at some point, that you just make a decision and you go for it. Because all great things do happen when somebody just says, this is where we're going and we got to get started.
I love it. I think the last thing I will say is just, we are so encouraged by the community that has been coming around us in the monthly challenges. Mm-hmm. And to be able to see in this month, when we're just recording this now, July, we did push-up challenges. You might be listening to this podcast and it could be October, but just so you know, we have monthly challenges each and every month in our Facebook group, Untamed Few. Love to have you guys join us. We are energized and excited to see just what's happening with men bringing in people in their office to do push-up challenges, to see men that started a place of maybe only having like 10 or 15 push-ups and now doing 350, 400 push-ups. We've seen men overcome some physical limitations to be able to keep persevering and pushing themselves. There's a place of building good habits and then the accountability that we have in that process. That's how we become great. Yep. That's what Living Untamed is all about. So we just encourage you guys, find us in the Facebook group, Untamed Few.
That's right.
And join us. Join us in these monthly challenges. Yeah. They're amazing. They are going to push you. They're going to create great community. You're going to build great habits that will allow you to live untamed.
And every month starts a new challenge. So you can jump in any month, but don't say next month.
And even if it's mid-month, you can still jump in.
You got it. And we're doing some swag prizes every month. So hope you join us. Don't make it next month. We've designed this so that it can be for anybody's lifestyle. It's just, how do you develop a good habit and find the accountability around that, like you said. So it's been good being with you, and hey, we look forward to the next time.
Love it. Live untamed.
Live untamed.
If this episode sparked something in you, please subscribe and even share it with someone who's ready to take their life to the next level. We're always on the hunt for men who are looking to become untamed and release their untamed potential. Also, if you found value in this conversation, then please rate the podcast and leave a comment. It makes a huge impact in building our community. We'll see you next time when the adventure continues, or maybe when yours begins.